안녕하세요. 저는 Khan입니다. Google Developer Advocate입니다. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Firebase recipe to bootstrap your app sessions. My name is Khanh. I'm a developer advocate at Google, and today I would like to share with you some of the ideas on how to make use of Firebase and quickly add new features to your app. Okay, so before we start, could you please raise your hand if you are already using Firebase in your app? Thank you. It's like half of the audience today are already using Firebase. Thank you very much. So many of you may have known Firebase was a database startup that Google acquired back in 2014. And at Google I/O 2016, we expanded Firebase to become a unified mobile platform with a goal to have you quickly develop high-quality apps and grow your business. So Firebase provides many ready-made solutions that can address common use cases that almost every app developer needs. Today, I would like to share with you some of the ideas on how to use Firebase to quickly add new features to your app. Firebase has many products, but today we'll only focus on these 5 products. And we'll see how we use Firebase to add new features to a hypothetical e-commerce app that we already have. And I'll share with you 4 recipes. The first one is how to add social login providers like Facebook login or Google sign-in to your app. The second one is to add an in-app chat features to our e-commerce app so that our sellers and buyers can talk directly with each other. The third one is how to send push notification without spinning up your own server. And the last one is how to use re-engagement push notification to improve purchase conversion in the app. Let's take a look at the first recipe of today, integrating social login providers. So we have our e-commerce app, and currently our users can create an account in our app using email and password. However, nowadays, users, many of them, they feel like it's a burden to create a new account for every service that they use. So we decided that we want to add login options using Google, Facebook, and Twitter to simplify our user account creation and login process of the app. However, each login provider has its own SDK and its own authentication flow. So it will take quite some effort to integrate all the login providers into your app. This is where Firebase authentication can help you with. Firebase authentication will wrap all the login providers and provide you with a common concept of a Firebase users. And all we have to do is to implement your app to use this Firebase users concept. There are 2 steps that is needed to add Firebase authentication to the app. First, of course, we will need to integrate Firebase authentication, and then we'll migrate our existing users to Firebase authentication. Let's take a look at the first step. This is how we implement Facebook login to our iOS app. We started by integrating Facebook SDK, and then we sign our user in using Facebook. Now you can get the Facebook access token from the Facebook SDK, and you pass it to Firebase SDK, and from here Firebase will handle the rest for you. And from this point, you no longer have to worry about which login providers that the users use to log in. All you have to do is to deal with the Firebase users that you can get the currently logged in users by calling auth.auth.current users like this. and then you can implement all of your features just using Firebase users. And next step, of course, we want to migrate our existing users to Firebase so that they can continue using our app. We use Firebase Admin SDK for this step. What we have to do is to pass our existing users' account information, namely their username, their email, and password to Firebase, and then it will create the Firebase users corresponding to these current users for you. And after that, you no longer have to worry about if this is an existing users or new users. And that's it. Now we have finished adding social login providers and hope that it will bring in more users to our e-commerce app. Okay, let's move to our second recipe of today, adding an in-app chat features to our app. Suppose that you are a shopper that is browsing on the e-commerce app, and sometimes probably you want to talk with the sellers to clarify a product specification, or maybe for price bargaining. So let's add an in-app chat features to allow our shoppers to communicate directly with the sellers. We use Firebase real-time database to implement this feature. But why should we use Firebase real-time database? Implementing a real-time connection between server and the client app from scratch is not an easy task. But with real-time database, you can listen in real time to changes in the database in the cloud using the client SDKs for iOS, Android, and web. The SDK also helps you with handling the offline situation. You can go from ideas to a working product within just a few days. Real-time database is just a big JSON object that lives in the cloud. In our use case of creating an in-app chat features, this is how our database structure will look like. A conversation is an unit in which our shoppers and sellers talk with each other. We have a conversations node at the top, in which containing the list of all conversations that happens in our app. Under each individual conversation, we have the message node that contains the list of all messages in that conversation. In each message, we have the message content, the user ID of the author of the message, and then the timestamp at which the message was posted. And then under users node, we have the list of users who is participating in that conversation. This includes both sellers and buyers. Let's take a look at how we implement our in-app chat feature. We'll start by posting new chat messages to the database. And then we receive the chat message from the database in real time. And finally, we secure access to our database so that our users can only read their own message, but not the message of others. Let's take a look at the first step, posting message to the database. We'll start by specifying where we want to store our chat message in the database. This is the path that I have shown you a few slides before this on the database structure slide. And then we compose our chat message object, which is the representation of our chat message in the database. It contains the message content and some metadata. And finally, we ask the Firebase SDK to save the message object to the cloud. That's all we have to do to store our message. And one more thing. Firebase SDK can automatically handle the offline cases for you, which means if an user tries to post a message when the device lost its internet connection, Firebase SDK will automatically store the data in local cache for you and then it will sync with the cloud once the internet connection is back. That is done under the hood without you writing any extra lines of code. And now let's take a look at the second step, receiving chat messages from the cloud in real time. Here's how we implement it. Again, we'll have to specify where our chat messages are stored in the database. And then we register a callback with Firebase SDK so that every time there's new data posted to the node, which means that there's a new message posted, our client app can get it in real time from the cloud. And finally, inside our callback, we have the data object represented our chat message. All we have to do from here is to show the message to the UI for the user. And one last step, how do we secure access to the database so that our users can see their own message, but not the message of the others? We'll combine Firebase authentication and Firebase real-time database to do this. In the first recipe, we have added Firebase authentication to our app. So now Firebase has already known which users is using the app. From that information, it can give the users access to the only data that they are allowed to see. Specifically, we have a list of users who are participating in the conversation stored under the user's node of that conversation. We want to give access to the conversation data only if the users is in this list. Firebase real-time database uses security rules to control access to the database. Here we define a rule. If only current users identified by auth.uid is in the list of users participating in this conversation, we grant them read and write access to the conversation data. And now we have completed adding an in-app chat features to our e-commerce app. We hope that because now our shoppers can communicate directly with the sellers, they will buy more items to our e-commerce app. That was our second recipe. And now let's take a look at our third recipe of today, sending push notification without spinning up our own server. So what we want to do is our customers now they can chat directly with the sellers to ask questions, but sometimes our sellers can't reply to the customer question immediately. In such cases, once the sellers has replied, we want to send a push notification to let the buyers know that they have their answers. We use Firebase Cloud Messaging and Cloud Functions for Firebase to implement this feature. Firebase Cloud Messaging, or FCM, is used to deliver push notification, and Cloud Function for Firebase to trigger the send process when the sellers reply to the customers. Firebase Cloud Messaging, or FCM, is a widely used Firebase product. One of the reasons for its popularity is that FCM provides you with an unified API to send push notification to all of your users, no matter if the users is on iOS, Android, or web. There are 3 steps needed to implement our features. First, we need to store Firebase Instant ID token to our database so that we can send the notification to the target device. And next, we'll write a cloud function to be triggered when there's new chat message posted. And finally, we use FCM to compose a notification and send it to our users. Let's take a look at the first step. All we have to do to get our Firebase Instance ID token is to call an API in Firebase SDK. And then we'll save the token value to our real-time database to use later on. And next, let's write a cloud function to be triggered when there's new chat message posted. So assume that we have all our chat messages stored under the message node for each conversation. We'll write our function to be triggered when there's new message posted. We have our function to listen to changes in the message node under each conversation. Once there's changes, which means that we have a new message added, we'll send out push notification to the customers who is in that conversation. And next, let's see how we send push notification using FCM. First, we'll take the message content, author name, and conversation ID from the trigger event so that we can use it later to craft our push notification message. And then from the author name and message content, we create a FCM payload to represent our push notification message that we want to send to our users. Next, we want to send our message to our users. We took out the instant ID token that we saved to Firebase real-time database earlier. And then we ask FCM to send our push notification payload to the target user's device. And that's all. Now we have finished implementing a push notification mechanism to notify our customer when sellers has replied to the questions. And that concludes our third recipe of today. Now let's take a look at the last one, using re-engagement push notification to improve conversion rate. Specifically, we are interested in re-engaging users that add to the cart, but abandon the purchase flow by sending them a push notification, nudging them to complete the purchase flow. Here are the steps that we will have to do to track and reach out to non-purchasers. First, we'll track when an user adds an item to the shopping cart. And next, we'll listen to this event and write the item details to the real-time database. When the items in the cart are purchased, again, we listen to the purchase event as well. And we remove the purchase items from the real-time database. Periodically, a cron job runs and gathers the list of non-purchasers and their items. Then a push notification is sent to the non-purchasers, nudging them to complete their purchase. So we hope that it will help improve the purchase conversion. So we used Google Analytics for Firebase to track and mark the user action as conversion event. Cloud function for Firebase, both as a trigger based on analytics events as well as a timer based. The real-time database to store cart items. And finally, FCM to send out the actual notification message. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time today to go into all the implementation details of these recipes, but you can see them in the recording of my Google I/O session this year. Please go to YouTube, look up the session with the same title as these sessions, Firebase recipes to bootstrap your apps, and you can find the recordings very easy. I hope that you will like it. That concluded our 4 recipes for today. Let's do a quick recap. As a first recipe, we've seen how to add social login providers to our app. And then we implemented an in-app chat features to let our customers and sellers communicate directly with each other. And then we implement a push notification mechanism to notify our customers when the sellers have replied to their questions. And finally, we've seen how to use re-engagement push notification to improve purchase conversions in our app. Last but not least, I'd like to show you how a real e-commerce app is using Firebase to power their service. So Mercari is a C2C marketplace that operates in Japan, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Recently, they launched a new video shopping features that is powered by Firebase real-time database. They managed to go from ideas to production in just about a month because they can skip many infrastructure work and focus on polishing the core user's experience. I hope that from this example, you can have an idea on how you can quickly add new features to the app using Firebase. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. Today, we can only see just 5 out of 12 products in Firebase, but there are so many other things that you can do with Firebase. So I hope that after you go back home today, it will take some time to look at the Firebase documentation that I have put the link up here and find out about other use cases that you can benefit from Firebase. I hope that you have enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.